Masters, managing editor of ST Magazine, and we're discussing mobile security in the workforce today with Patricia Titus, the new CISO of Unisys. And Patricia, we've been talking this afternoon about balancing the new technology, the new availability of smartphones, laptops, employees working remotely all over the world, and the challenges IT managers face with securing these devices going into the corporate network. How do you see the balance between the cost savings, the efficiency, versus security issues, like making sure emails going to the right place, people are not accessing things they shouldn't be accessing?
So I think there's a great way to balance it, and there's a lot of third-party products and technologies that can overlay onto the smartphones and mobile devices, which can give you the level of security based on your policies that will give you what you need from a compliance perspective. But I also think there's a balance between not only the technology, but the use agreement between me using my personal device to access my corporate resources. So there has to be a clear understanding of acceptable use. What happens if there's an incident? Am I willing to give up my personal device so that forensics can be run on it? And there are some liability issues that the company needs to iron out before you jump into this headwind, and make sure that the policies are clearly in place, clearly articulated with your employees, and that everybody's in agreement.
And so, referencing a study that just came out a month ago from Unisys, with help from IDC, surveying what you're calling iWorkers. Is that a new term that you invented? Or
I'm not sure if we invented it. But
mobile workforce,
right.
People working remotely, not in the office behind the firewalls, but now these people can now be behind firewalls or tapped into the corporate network so that they are working securely.
So the iWorker, or the independent worker, can be somebody who can be working in their home. They could be a road warrior working from a hotel. So we've had virtual private networking capabilities. So we've allowed people to use VPN technology to gain access to corporate resources or agency resources. So, but I think the difference is now you're dealing with devices that are much smaller form factor, much easier to lose, and can contain a whole lot more data. So the question is, what are the security parameters around that data as it's traversing, or data in motion? And then the data at rest, how am I making sure that I've encrypted that data that's sensitive? And then what happens if the device gets lost? What are the protocols that I have in place to wipe the device from a remote location in the event it's stolen or lost? So when the device comes back online, it basically wipes any data off of it so that I can be assured, or assure my clients, that data is not being lost.
And we're talking specifically, say, about the iPhone or the Android or some other smartphone or iPad now.
Or yes, or even a netbook. I mean, all of the smaller form factors that have significant processing power and are able to collect and store data. I have to make sure that that data is still falling within the policies and the legal requirements and compliance requirements for my organization or my company, as well as the customers that we're servicing. So I have to take their compliance regulations into account as well.
And this is obviously a wave that's just growing. In the mobile workforce, people using personal devices that they're buying themselves, according to your, a big majority are willing to buy a device that a year ago might not have been allowed to be used for corporate use. But they're so ubiquitous now, you can't stop people from using them. A younger workforce, they're just too convenient. Is that right? So how is someone using an iPhone or iPad, a smartphone? How do you assure that they adhere to policy?
Well, first of all, you have to educate your workforce. So you need to make sure that people clearly understand they need to register their devices, and you need to lay out a clear strategy and policy for pushing that security package to those devices, and make sure that everybody's in agreement with it. And the other part is to make sure that people are willing to tell you when they lose it. A lot of people, they're afraid to say, oh, I lost the device. But if you've got the right security package on it and you can remote wipe it, you can actually give that person an assurance that if you lose it, come and tell me, because I can make all the data on there go away so that it can't be used against you, or if there's some information on there that was personal, it's not going to fall into the wrong hands.
And you're advising your clients, and within your own corporation, you're assuring like log management, like email is going to be archived and needs to be called up at some point for compliance reasons or a forensics investigation. And you have all those systems in place?
Most of those systems go back to the old days of virtual private networking. So, like the BlackBerry server. So data is replicated to the device as well as to an enterprise exchange cluster. So the data is still being retained. It's just assuring that you've got the right set of parameters in place and policies set within your exchange and your other storage arrays so that people are storing data in the right places. And that's a cultural, educational issue that you're going to have to deal with. The other part is making sure people understand the implications of using these devices and what it means, what their responsibility is in the protection of that data. And then policy enforcement is probably another one. So we've had discussions in the company about doing random checks of people's devices to make sure that they're adhering to policy, either through the logging capability. The other one is to actually physically take a device and look at it, and it's all random. There's a lot of controversy around that from a privacy perspective, so it's something that we have to wrestle with as a company.
But that brings up an issue of the insider threat. I mean, how are you going to assure, keep tabs on, so make sure someone's not siphoning off data, or whether maliciously or inadvertently.
Right, so that's a problem today, regardless if you take a mobile device into an environment or not. So how do you manage and maintain control of the USB devices, external hard drives, thumb drives, things like that? So if you've got a good policy in place, depending on the type of data people are accessing, you're going to put those right protocols in place, and you're going to be monitoring the data. So if you see a large amount of data come from a data store that has sensitive information and it goes out through a USB port, you're probably going to question that from a log perspective. What happened to that data and where did it go? And some of the newer technologies, well, it's not a newer technology, but it's just really starting to get, I think, a lot of visibility, and that's the data loss prevention capabilities. I think they've become easier to use and deploy than they were, say, 5 years ago. So data loss prevention is another technique that you can add to your defense in depth strategy. And I think that's going to be another key area, is monitoring where the data is going, being able to track it inside and outside the network, and making sure that you're tracking the right data.
And what other trends do you see in the near future? What are some of the big developments, or the need, maybe perhaps needs for corporate mobile worker?
I think what we're going to have to do is figure out how to track data through the internet. So people say that they have the technology and the capability, but how do you tag it and mark it at a metadata level? So that's getting more into the application layer. And the other thing I think will become, as my feel a prediction coming, is I think we're going to get to the point where no one is trusted, and that there's the core to the network, and everyone becomes an untrusted agent coming into the environment, that everyone is considered hostile, trying to get to the core set of your servers, and that we look at data protection differently, because the way we're doing it today isn't necessarily keeping our PII data from being lost.
That's true. It's certainly a different mindset that we might be evolving to. Okay. Well, thank you, Patricia Titus, Unisys, for coming in today, and happy to have you. And we'll see you soon.
Great. Thanks, Greg.